52 agonizing days of absolute silence passed before the devastated children of the missing woman finally spoke. They stood alongside Annie's spouse, Tommaso Cioni, to deliver their initial public update in 7 grueling weeks. Their message shattered remaining hopes, validating the darkest fears surrounding this mystery. Her loved ones accept she is never walking through her front door again. The heartbreaking text began, "We deeply wish to honor her incredible and brave spirit." Yet, they emphasized this tribute must wait until she rests in peace, notably abandoning all wishes for a safe return, demanding only a final resting spot. Nearly 2 months later, her inner circle is simply begging to recover her remains. I reread this obsessively. Everyone sensed that tragic shift approaching. But I kept reviewing the text because of a hidden calendar day, out of nowhere. They urged the community to recall anything suspicious from the night of January 11th, exactly 21 days prior to her vanishing. This incredibly specific timeline did not originate from her daughters or her son. Sheriff Nanos revealed that this crucial piece of intelligence was actually sourced from Google. Upon retrieving porch camera data, analysts informed detectives that a captured image of the unburdened, unarmed prowler likely originated on January 11th. However, the technology company quickly retracted their claim, citing a lack of timestamp certainty. While local law enforcement called it a dead end, federal agents disagreed entirely, canvassing the neighborhood for clips from that evening and instructing the family to highlight it. Checking the dates reveals a glaring, undeniable pattern. January 11th fell on a Sunday. Detectives also probed into January 24th, a Saturday, while her ultimate disappearance occurred on February 1st, another Sunday. 3 distinct occurrences spread exclusively across consecutive weekends strongly suggest the perpetrator holds employment. His weekday schedule is clearly occupied from Monday to Friday, leaving only the late weekend hours available for darkness. That single realization shrinks the suspect pool significantly more than any official profile distributed by the federal authorities. Furthermore, an unresolved mystery continues to linger. The victim experienced 2 separate breaches of her chat accounts. She openly pleaded with her network for tech assistance. Did the intruder infiltrate her digital life beforehand? Was her private correspondence weaponized to figure out her daily routine and pinpoint moments of vulnerability? Alternatively, is it just another random coincidence in a case full of them? Let us dive deep. We must analyze this cyber intrusion further, as many brushed it off as background noise when it might be crucial. Consider the contents of a private chat for an 84-year-old solitary resident in Tucson. It holds logistical discussions. It documented everything from app-based car requests and family transit favors to her weekly Sunday service attendance details. This served as the exact platform where she casually updated her circle regarding her travel plans and overall availability. Sharing wholesome family pictures and culinary hobbies created a predictable timeline perfectly visible to any silent observer lurking online. Her routine was exposed: Tuesdays spent indoors, Fridays visiting Annie, followed by a late rideshare journey backward. Solitude began at 10 o'clock, while staking out the property revealed security placements, preferred entryways, and illumination schedules. Meanwhile, monitoring her online footprint handed over the itinerary, signaling exactly when the residence emptied. It showed when isolation set in and her auditory devices were removed. The attacker possessed both tactical advantages. Weekend scouting mapped out the terrain, compromised chats provided the timetable, and preparation extended far beyond screens. By the morning of January 31st, marking the final hours of normalcy for Nancy, someone staged the scene. Around 10 o'clock that day, witnesses observed a mysterious automobile idling along Via Entrada, right next to her property. Federal authorities immediately began confiscating all video feeds aimed at that thoroughfare from 10 to 11:30 in the morning. They desperately hoped to trace the license plate to the earlier lurker. However, she stayed indoors until evening. Remaining inside meant that a full 12 hours prior to the tragedy, an observer staked out her location. This did not happen at 2 o'clock in the morning, a time when abandoned streets make idling vehicles glaringly obvious. At 10 in the morning, quiet neighborhood avenues typically bustle with busy yard workers and frequent postal carriers, rendering a parked sedan completely unnoticeable. During this hour, an individual resting in the driver's seat simply appears to be an employee pausing for a break. They could easily be anticipating a scheduled customer or lingering for community access credentials. They were not biding time until dusk. This bold daylight scouting points to a very distinct, specific perpetrator. We are talking about an individual possessing a completely valid excuse to wander the foothills during business shifts. This suspect blended in so flawlessly at 10 in the morning that no local resident ever considered dialing emergency services. They essentially vanished into plain sight, matching the suburban aesthetic so perfectly that they became effectively invisible. Someone was always watching, maybe a yard guy, a builder, or a pool cleaner right beside Nancy's place. Federal agents are completely aware of this and track down the owner, demanding a full roster of laborers present prior to February 1st. A fact verified by journalist Brian Inton. Authorities are definitely not treating this lightly. Investigators are meticulously compiling an extensive database of individuals whose jobs brought them to that exact block throughout January. Renowned forensics expert Joseph Scott Morgan, a seasoned veteran boasting over 10,000 homicide cases under his belt, broke down the significance of this builder theory in completely plain English. Laborers stationed high up on skeletal house frames enjoy an unmatched, sweeping view over the entire surrounding community. Stuck in one spot for hours, they peer directly downward into private backyards, driveways, and interior spaces from angles completely ignored by standard home defense lenses. Since typical tech only faces outward, those devices capture entryways and the initial 10 feet of pavement, but they absolutely never monitor the clouds above. Anyone perched 2 floors up, just a few doors down, entirely bypasses the street's local security monitoring network. Consider the angles involved here, as a January builder easily tracked her vehicle movements and noted her preferred entrances. That observer noticed exactly when the maintenance crews showed up for their regular weekly appointments. He effortlessly soaked in the neighborhood's daily flow, just like anyone stuck in one spot for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It requires zero conscious effort or taking notes because all those tiny details naturally pile up in your brain. Spotting which property has alarms, noticing who leaves by 8, and figuring out which pets actually make noise. Seeing a lone female return late through her garage is chilling when you link his weekday work schedule to her weekend vulnerability. While getting paid for his labor, he simultaneously constructs a mental map of the local routines during each shift, naturally gathering intel like any employee zoning out at work, until Saturday hits and the building zone shuts down, leading him to return right when supervisors are gone and absolutely no one is checking time cards, leaving behind the branded corporate truck for his personal ride under the cover of darkness, sneaking right up to a doorway he actively memorized. January 11th, January 24th, and January 31st provided the perfect daytime scouting opportunities. Then Saturday nights offered pure shadows, a terrifying concept mirroring past tragedies that federal investigators undoubtedly remember well. In 2006, Jennifer Kessie mysteriously vanished from her Orlando, Florida complex. Security cameras caught an unidentified suspect casually strolling away from her parked vehicle in the lot. Yet the horrible video quality made identification impossible, pushing detectives hard toward the nearby laborer hypothesis. A massive building project bordered her property, granting the crew an unobstructed view of her residence, her parking habits, and her schedule. Many laborers collected under the table cash, while others completely lacked legal status. Several had already vanished to completely different states by the time the police finally started asking questions. Detectives never cracked the laborer angle in Kessie's tragedy because the wildly nomadic, off-the-books crew proved impossible to thoroughly track down. Federal agents currently find themselves battling that precise nightmare scenario up in the Catalina foothills today. We already see glaring signs of a sloppy sweep, like when Nancy Guthrie's local landscaper finally reached out to a reporter by mid-March, stating that authorities entirely ignored him for over 6 weeks following the horrifying kidnapping event. Zero contact from local cops, to federal officers, or any special agent. Despite him working directly on her very block, he intimately knows the homeowners, understands the daily flow, and instantly recognized Nancy's face. He mentions spotting her around 8 months to a year prior to her vanishing, sharing a quick morning greeting and nothing more. Nobody is pointing fingers at this yard worker or accusing him of playing a sinister role in Nancy's tragic fate. He volunteered this crucial intel out of pure goodwill because law enforcement completely ignored him. His story proves that 6 weeks of digging by a 24-person team sorting 40,000 leads still missed regulars haunting that specific area. When a daily worker stationed near the primary crime scene slips through the cracks, your dragnet is failing. Over in the upscale Catalina foothills, those massive oversights are uniquely disastrous, since locals in that wealthy enclave rarely ever spend actual time roaming outdoors. These wealthy residents work remotely, travel constantly, and outsource every single chore. The folks genuinely pounding the pavement out there, crossing the lawns, and marching right along the property boundaries, hauling heavy gear and scaling rooftops, are exclusively the hired help like bug sprayers, air conditioning mechanics, and pool cleaners, couriers, alarm technicians, and your neighborhood construction foreman, alongside their hired hands and transient daily crews. Inside an exclusive community where properties easily fetch millions of dollars, a relentless, ever-changing parade of invisible blue-collar ghosts marches through those streets weekly. These folks arrive, execute their tasks, and vanish without catching a single second glance because we anticipate seeing them. They essentially blend right into the upscale background. Their daily attendance feels normal. Criminal behavior experts actually refer to this phenomenon as ambient observation. It represents that quiet, accidental, yet profound understanding gained merely by hanging around a specific area constantly. Any gardener maintaining the same block for half a year learns exactly which mansions boast security systems and their precise blind spots. He spots whose garage sits vacant by 8 o'clock each morning, alongside the sedan that perpetually gathers dust. Private chats easily drift outside while he prunes the front shrubs. He definitely spots whenever daily habits shift, like a local lady missing her usual sunrise stroll with her golden retriever. He sees the unfamiliar truck parking there at dusk, or realizes the master suite turns pitch black early. Absolutely none of this constitutes intentional spying on residents. This natural absorption of facts occurs whenever someone routinely inhabits identical surroundings over an extended period. All those intimate details stockpile inside your brain subconsciously. So, regarding an abduction where the attacker undeniably mastered Nancy's schedule, intimately understood her estate's exact floor plan, and perfectly mapped every single lens guarding the perimeter and swimming deck, asking who else held that identical background, intel is hardly just a minor side note. It remains the core mystery. Answering it could completely crack this entire investigation wide open. Federal agents recently began gathering local vendor identities, representing solid headway. However, business directories solely reveal the official, on-the-book staff. We mean registered corporations, protected crews, and individuals carrying verifiable payroll documents and tax paperwork. Down in Tucson, situated so close to Mexico and bustling with off-the-books gigs, a massive chunk of domestic help actually functions completely off the grid. These are cash-in-hand guys clustering near supply shops pre-dawn, laborers bouncing among different foremen continuously without maintaining permanent roles. These individuals accept physical bills, definitely lack fancy corporate credentials, and, for incredibly logical motives, refuse to march inside a federal headquarters willingly to face interrogations regarding an abduction they hold absolutely zero connection to. These invisible men represent crucial bystanders. Perhaps one of them noticed an out-of-place sedan, spotted an unfamiliar stranger, or witnessed activities appearing totally innocent during January but suddenly holding terrifying weight today. This golden nugget of truth remains buried inside a stranger's mind solely because authorities have not knocked on their door. Let us pivot toward the surveillance footage. Given a fresh revelation tightly weaves our landscaping theory, that passive reconnaissance factor, and the jamming hypothesis perfectly together. Frankly, this particular anomaly ought to send chills down your spine. Federal investigators salvaged preview clips generated by Nancy's personal security devices, specifically lenses monitoring her patio, rear lawn, and side alleys. ABC News initially broke this scoop, and CBS News later verified it. These previews date back several weeks prior to February 1st. They feature movement-activated captures, grainy quality, lacking audio, yet sufficient for identifying exactly who neared the estate and precisely when. Footage documented gardeners. Maintenance crews. Relatives, basically reflecting the standard flow of a busy home throughout January. Insiders closely tied to the probe confirmed 0 alarming elements appeared within those archives. That mystery figure on the porch cam, wearing a balaclava, hauling an Ozark Trail rucksack, remains completely absent from all salvaged preview snaps. This suspect avoided entering via the swimming deck, rear lawn, or side passages while those lenses stayed actively rolling. He purposefully dodged these specific viewpoints, or monitored everything from completely beyond their visual range, perhaps perching atop an unfinished housing skeleton 3 properties away. However, those exact informants highlighted something undeniably bizarre. Those particular lenses, which operated flawlessly for weeks, recording everyday neighborhood movement without a single glitch, snapping active frames and archiving previews flawlessly per their programming. They mysteriously filmed absolutely 0 activity the evening Nancy vanished. 0 movement detected, lacking even a solitary snapshot. The tech functioned fine before February 1st. It operated flawlessly afterward. Yet during that crucial evening, every single Wi-Fi-enabled lens guarding Nancy's home abruptly died. Our channel dissected this targeted jamming hypothesis during an earlier episode of our current playlist. Several locals experienced dead broadband connections that night of February 1st. A bystander's porch devices completely failed, though strictly along the wall directly facing Nancy's yard. The security tech positioned opposite that very residence, feeding into identical hardware, accessing the exact same broadband, drawing from matching electrical grids, remained perfectly functional till dawn. This clearly avoids random blackout status. It implies weaponized signal blocking featuring spatial precision. Nancy's personal system crashing ultimately proves this digital sabotage penetrated deep within her legal boundaries. A total blackout struck every single perimeter lens the moment the predator arrived. The pool and yard monitors captured absolute 0, leaving just the main entryway lens as the sole surviving witness. That specific unit ran on an entirely separate network, right up until the intruder manually crushed it at 1:47 in the morning. Nobody even needed to physically smash those perimeter devices. Total darkness fell before the intruder stepped foot on site, proving this phantom had mapped out every single blind spot beforehand. It goes way beyond that front entry monitor he casually strolled toward and smothered with a potted fern. The perimeter sensors along the fence, the side views, the rear angles. This individual memorized every single placement and understood their cable-free nature completely. Understanding their exact broadcast channels allowed him to pack a jammer, killing the signal from afar without ever stepping onto the grounds or leaving a single microscopic clue behind. You simply cannot scrape that kind of intense technological mastery and hyper-local geographical awareness off some random web search. A quick cruise down the street or a satellite map image will not give you these details either. Gathering this intel requires serious boots on the ground, literally standing close enough to stare right at those mounted sensors. Scoping out the fence lines and pool overhangs means lurking inside or right next door long enough to draft a flawless tactical blueprint of the entire defensive grid. Image snippets salvaged by federal agents confirmed various contractors roamed the victim's grounds weeks before she vanished. Groundskeepers manicuring lawns and maintenance crews scrubbing water features. These crews stared right at the lenses. They worked inches away. We no longer need to wonder if a hired hand could have hoarded this tactical data. What we actually need to ask is whether detectives have successfully interrogated every single individual who had that kind of access. Judging by the groundskeepers' statements, they definitely missed someone while this whole crisis was unfolding rapidly. The local county boss hopped on a Tucson AM broadcast and accidentally dropped far more bombshells than he ever revealed during his polished network television appearances. It featured an incredibly laid-back vibe with friendly neighborhood presenters. Surrounded by that comfortable, buddy-buddy atmosphere, the top cop blurted out startling admissions he had completely avoided sharing with the television crews. When pressed on whether he regretted his tactical choices, the man flatly declared he would not change a single thing. Despite wishing for a cleaner outcome, he furiously defended every move his squad executed, which marks a massive flip-flop from his previous stance. Back when the hunt first started, he openly confessed to wire reporters that his deputies cleared the target house way too prematurely. He totally erased that guilty plea today. His fresh narrative claims absolute perfection, insisting he merely manages things rather than actively running down the clues himself. He claims his days of chasing leads are ancient history, portraying himself as a high-level guardian angel, steering the squad from a comfortable executive distance. Anytime a crisis triggers this much intense spotlight, heavy network coverage, and fierce political outrage, add a seven-figure civilian bounty and federal strike teams to the mix, and most commanders would bravely declare total accountability. Instead, our leader dodged by insisting he was not the actual sleuth, a critical excuse considering the massive blunders currently under fire, abandoning the extraction zone prematurely and shipping genetic material down south rather than federal headquarters, shrinking the containment grid to just 2 miles instead of 5, letting the pool guy wander inside, and spilling medical tracker secrets to eager journalists. Feeding conflicting tales about those front porch snapshots to 4 major broadcast networks entirely happened under his watch. Out of nowhere, he paralleled this nightmare to the 2012 abduction of little Isabel Silas, snatched right out of her bedroom. They recovered her remains out in the Badlands years later, finally locking up the monster a full 10 years down the line. The top brass desperately needed listeners to realize these massive manhunts are grueling marathons. He deliberately brought up how the public crucified that grieving dad for ages before investigators officially cleared his name. That felt like a massive, thinly veiled jab at the brutal public trial Tommaso Cioni currently endures, right before addressing those nasty Texas infractions exposed by local reporters. The mandatory exit in 1982 and those 37 shifts spent on unpaid leave, booting a restrained captive in the skull and lying on a CV, which he surprisingly admitted were completely justified punishments he truly deserved. He blamed it on youthful ignorance, playing the naive rookie card while furiously denying he was ever some kind of loose cannon with a badge. Angry citizens are currently petitioning to strip away his badge, making his survival a messy battle of pure partisan warfare. The tactical dilemma hits much harder. We face a commander completely dodging accountability while swearing his squad executed everything flawlessly. A guy calling January 11th totally useless, right as the feds order the victims to blast that exact timestamp across the media. We must ask if this leader's arrogant blunders officially torched precious hours this rescue mission desperately needed, especially when he personally admitted Nancy had less than 24 hours to survive without her crucial prescriptions. Now the shattered relatives just want a corpse to bury instead of a miraculous homecoming. 50 days deep, and the federal strike teams remain fully deployed in the field. 20 to 24 boots on the ground split evenly between local deputies and federal agents, while lab coats scramble to map out ancestry trees from the biological evidence. That exact same cutting-edge science that finally nailed the Golden State Phantom and tied Brian Koberger to that brutal collegiate massacre. This case is secretly burning white-hot right now. Former federal operative Jennifer Coffindaffer explosively confirmed this Sunday. She emphasized that authorities are actively chasing down an unprecedented mountain of clues. A financial kidnapping angle is rapidly falling apart. Ex-agent Harry Trombitas explained recently, citing the overwhelming logistical hurdles and massive exposure risks involved. The massive 7-figure bounty sits completely untouched because the tight-lipped individuals holding the answers are actually guilty, warned retired investigator Steve Moore. This is definitely no blind guess, but rather a chilling professional conclusion from a veteran kidnapping hunter. Ultimately, the secretive group hiding Nancy's fate remains incredibly tight, with each guilty member clinging to a massive motive for keeping their mouths shut. Savannah Guthrie and her relatives firmly believe the ultimate answers lie directly among the Tucson population. Federal investigators deliberately engineered that targeted territorial claim, making it explicitly clear the primary predator lives locally, originating directly from Tucson, or perhaps the exact neighborhood where Nancy lived for over 50 years. We seek a standard weekday employee. He stalked her exclusively on Saturdays and Sundays for 3 straight weeks, memorizing her estate thoroughly enough to dismantle the security feeds without detection. He breached her private social media profiles, directly exposing her daily schedule and upcoming plans. He read her exact availability verbatim. Additionally, someone spotted an odd vehicle parked nearby at 10 o'clock that tragic morning. while a raised neighborhood building zone provided a perfect sniper's view directly onto her private backyard patio. Meanwhile, 6 weeks later, detectives still have not managed to interview absolutely every laborer who passed through her street. The net is closing. 3 distinct weekends prove he operates on a rigid schedule. That elevated building project provided a perfect sniper's view, while the missing landscaper interviews prove the official dragnet has gaps. Blinding the cameras proves he carried jamming gear, while the cyber breach confirms his digital capabilities. The unified public plea from Savannah, Annie, Tommaso, and Camron proves that federal authorities firmly believe the culprit remains in Tucson, directly quoting the county sheriff himself. Tech giants dated the picture to January 11th before backtracking, yet federal agents charged forward anyway, firmly believing it was real. Meanwhile, local police insist the digital evidence remains frustratingly vague. Her family pleads, search your memories regarding that exact night. Furthermore, the predator's own habits reveal a phantom who grinds away during business days and stalks prey on weekends. 50 days have passed without handcuffs, yet the invisible trap is rapidly shutting around his neck. Somewhere across Tucson, the prime target woke up and headed out to his regular job today. Whether he fired up a heavy truck or clocked into an office, he casually greeted clueless coworkers who remained totally blind to the horrific sins he committed. He obsessively refreshed headlines about his own crime, knowing more than the journalists reporting it, and mentally marked off the calendar just like a terrified fugitive. He realizes a cold steel cage is inching closer, held back only by pending forensic swabs, undiscovered doorbell videos, and silent neighbors who simply haven't spoken up to authorities yet. His safety buffer is vanishing quickly. If you worked jobs in the Catalina foothills during January or early February, or belonged to a local construction crew, perhaps you drove a truck down those winding roads and noticed a seemingly harmless detail, rethink it immediately. It might not have been a random car idling in the wrong driveway. Perhaps you spotted a lingering driver staring out a window way past their lunch hour, or a familiar workday face suddenly creeping around the block on a Saturday. Such tiny fragments are absolutely critical right now. Somebody living in Tucson definitely holds the missing piece. Federal agents and desperate relatives alike know it as fact. Those 3 consecutive weekends prove the monster was deeply embedded locally. He was prowling those exact pavements, dodging those very lenses, and mapping the community well before making his final, devastating strike in the dark. Smash the subscribe button, trigger your notifications, and drop a comment below. And tell me what those 3 surveillance weekends expose about the monster who snatched Nancy. Our upcoming episode fully pursues the exact investigative thread introduced today. The hunt continues. This story is not just about a crime, it is a powerful warning about how easily everyday life can be taken for granted. It reminds us that danger does not always look obvious. Sometimes, it hides in routine, in familiarity, and in the quiet details we overlook every day. One of the most important lessons here is awareness. Our daily habits when we leave home, where we go, what we share online can unintentionally create patterns that others may exploit. Being mindful of what we share and how predictable our routines are is not fear, it is protection. It also teaches us the value of paying attention to small signs. A strange car, an unfamiliar face, or a moment that feels off should never be ignored. These details might seem insignificant at the time, but they can become crucial pieces of a much larger picture. Equally important is the role of community. Safety is not an individual effort, it is collective. When people speak up, share information, and look out for one another, they create a network of protection that no single person can build alone. Above all, this story is a reminder to act, not assume. Awareness, vigilance, and courage can make the difference between prevention and tragedy.